keep people hooked into your world long enough so that when they need someone like you to be able to help solve their problem, guess who they're thinking about? You.
Hey, welcome back to this episode. Today I have another great guest with me, John DeMato with DeMato Productions, professional photographer, videographer, all of that stuff. We'll get into it. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Brad. Appreciate the invitation.
Now, I don't want to upset you or insult you. I know like photographers don't like to be called videographers and vice versa. Does that apply here? Or?
I can give you a point of clarification on that, my friend. So once upon a time, I was in fact a videographer. I was a television field producer for a talk show for the Maury Show for 9 years. And I shot thousands and thousands and thousands of interviews. And then when I quit the show and then I started on my own, I was a hybrid. I did some video work, some testimonials, behind the scenes stuff, covered some events, as well as doing headshots. And then I realized that at a certain point that my heart was leading me towards just becoming a full-time photographer. And when I say my heart, I mean my body, because carrying carrying photo equipment is already heavy. Carrying video equipment is twice as heavy. And at the end of the day, I got tired of it.
Oh, I don't blame you on that. I mean, some of the stuff you see, I like to watch the behind the scenes of movie, when they're filming movies and you can like see behind the scenes of the cameras and the booms and all. It's like the amount of production, and you know this, but the amount of production that goes into that stuff is insane.
It's obscene how much metal and cabling and power generators and all this other crap that you see. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And it's not light.
No, I've seen like those big old, I don't know what they call them, but like the whole apparatus, where the cable comes over and holds the camera so the guys can run around with the Steadicam. Yeah.
I've put one of those on once. A friend of mine is a professional Steadicam operator. I put it on just for the hell of it. And within 5 minutes, I was completely exhausted. I'm like, you're out of your mind, man. But it does look pretty. I will say the footage looks absolutely gorgeous.
I know this is way off topic, but it's interesting for me. Like there was, and again, this is your world, you know this, but I forget, it was the movie Extraction with, I think it was one of the, is it Liam or his brother? One of those actors. You know what movie I'm talking about? Extraction.
No,
I think it was Extraction 2, but it's like a military movie. They're going and save a bunch of people. Yeah. But they did something in that movie that they said it was a first, where it was like a continuous shot with one camera for like a 10-minute car chase fight scene. And then I watched the behind the scenes on that, and it was just how they did that was insane.
It's the level of sophistication in terms of logistics, coordination, and timing it's like in Goodfellas when they walk into the Copacabana. I don't know if you saw Goodfellas, but
long time ago.
Yeah, that shot is not 10 minutes, but it is definitely a couple of minutes, and it's going through tight corridors and in the kitchen, going through hallways. I mean, to put that thing together takes a monumental effort for sure.
Yeah, I know they were using mainly like a drone. They have a drone, and the drone comes down, the guy catches it, and he's in the back of the car, and then scene, and then he hands the drone off out the window, and then it goes.
That's
it's like one continuous scene.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Next
Maybe it wasn't 10 minutes, but it was still insane. All right, well, let's get to the nitty gritty of why you're on this call, on this episode, and what we're talking about. We're talking about visual storytelling. Just in general, what is that? Just give me your perspective on visual storytelling and what that means to you.
I'll give you the one sentence definition. Let's keep it simple for now. Visual storytelling is the process of proving what you say is true by how you show up in your photos. So for the people that I serve, generally speaking, they're experts and they speak on stages. They write books, consult, coach, train, all of those different things. And for them, it's important to be able to back up the words in their content, the words on their website, the words that come out of their mouth by showing their audience what all of those things look like. You know, if they say, for example, I'm a $25,000 keynote speaker, well, what does that look like in photos? How do you prove that by showing that in photos? You say that you're a trainer of different companies and teams and organizations. Well, where are the photos that prove that? Because in this day and age, you know, in this digital age, we're so inundated with noise online everywhere, all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the only way to kind of stand above the noise and create distinction within your particular market is by creating this opportunity for people to see what it is that you can do for them and not just talk about it.
Yeah, I love what you said there. Like proving what you say is true through images.
Yeah.
How do you do that though? Like I know this is kind of like a stupid question, but like why can't I just pull out my phone and take a picture of a bathroom remodel that I did and that's proof that, like, why isn't that good enough?
It's not that it's not good enough. And in fact, I would tell you that that is important to do as well. The thing about that is when you're looking to create a level of perception in the minds of your audience that you are the go-to authority, one of the ways to do that is by actually enhancing and amplifying your visuals by investing in professional images that capture it from a different vantage point. There's more aesthetic value to the image because when someone comes across it, they're going to have a certain reaction to it. Now, the photo that you just mentioned, when you share that and you share a first person perspective of that process, that's good stuff. As well, not as well as, but in addition to that, when you have professional images of the same thing, in addition to a wealth of other types of images that correspond to that particular build or remodel, now all of a sudden, you're giving yourself the opportunity to be seen a little bit differently, and especially where you use these images. So, whereas your photo with the smartphone photo shot would be great for something online on one of your socials as a kind of a progress report on what you and your team are working on your website, that's where you can put the high quality images, and that will create a much stronger first impression with those that you serve, and they're coming to qualify you. They'll be able to see all that stuff. So everything has a place when it comes to visual storytelling. The professional photos you invest in, as well as the smartphone photos that you take on your own.
I mean, that makes complete sense. I mean, from a social media, it's supposed to be a little more raw, right? It's supposed to be more like organic. I noticed when I started putting videos on TikTok, like I was really trying to get a little more higher, quality editing and all of this stuff. And I would spend a bunch of time doing it. And I would get mediocre results. But then once I just started putting raw stuff out there, I got pretty good results. Now that's social media in terms of what I do and that type of that.
Yes.
When you have a client who's looking for a kitchen remodel or a deck or whatever you're doing, a new home, they're looking for how I see myself in that space.
Yes.
And that's where the visual storytelling becomes way more important.
And I would also add to that, Brad, that it's not just the final piece of it, meaning, okay, everything's done. Let's take a picture from a couple of vantage points and show off the craftsmanship, the quality of the materials, the overall ambiance of the set and setting. So also every single step of the way. Show your people how the sausage is made. Give them a sense of that process, because this is exactly what they want to know what they're getting into, because as anyone knows that has gone through a remodel or a straight up rebuild of an entire property, it isn't exactly going to go like peas and carrots. There's going to be some hiccups and some steps along the way. It's a process. Therefore, if you actually capture what it looks like before, and not just before and after, before, during, and after, now you have a really, really interesting opportunity to share that story with potential clients down the line. And then when you layer in some first person experience from your side of the conversation, as well as from the client side of the conversation, now you're truly painting a much broader picture for your audience of potential clients to be able to truly qualify whether or not you are a fit to be able to take on the project that they are looking to hire out for.
I agree with you 100% on the before, during, and after pictures. How important is like the before and during to be high quality? Like, should I hire a professional to come in and do some of those? Or in terms of professional photography, does that really only matter at the end?
Well,
what's your thoughts on that?
I think based on what we just talked about earlier, the answer is both.
Okay.
The onus can be on you to capture smartphone photos of you and the team doing different things across whatever that project happens to be. And then you have a photographer come in and capture that set and that setting during the process at key touch points to be able to get that for, say, the case. Basically, I was laying out a case study before.
Okay.
In terms of the before, during, and after, your commentary, their commentary, all that stuff put together in a big bowl, mixed together, and you have something that's really impactful. I mean, that would be my kind of suggestion with regards to how to handle that, because, this thing could take a couple months, could take a year, God knows how long it's going to take. So for you, it would be important to just stay top of mind with people who are following you with the photos that you're doing. And then occasionally you splash in some high level shots if you want, or just save them for the website and for other for pitch decks or for pitches to, potential clients. And then all of a sudden now you have a real comprehensive image portfolio.
That makes sense. Yeah. I was just thinking like, and this is probably more videography, but like I've seen commercials that are well done for like a contracting business. And there's always like B-roll of, the contractors like getting out of the truck and walking up to the job site. And it's a collage of videos and stuff. Do we need to do any of that kind of thing with pictures, or is it just focused on the actual space that you're working on? Like, do we need to have I don't know what the proper term for that is. Like, what do you call that type of shooting?
They're candid lifestyle images,
Okay.
capturing the moment. And the answer to that is, I mean, if I were the person that were on site, I'm capturing everything known to man that's in front of my face, because all of those moments matter when it comes to putting together a comprehensive visual story for, your audience. And at the end of the day, you capture a couple hundred photos in an hour span. You're not going to use all of them anyway, but why not have the opportunity to be able to leverage these images in one way or another? Because, if we're photographing members of your team on the build, those images can come in handy, not necessarily for that particular project, but it could come in handy down the line when you're looking to be able to share another type of story with your audience. And, oh, wow, I have this image of someone doing something and I'm able to use this. So it's better to have them than to not shoot them at all.
Okay. Would you recommend, though, hiring a professional to come out like during and doing some of those professional shots like that, the candid shots?
I would, only for the simple fact that, it's important to have that mixture so that you always have, at the end of the day, when we're talking about visual storytelling, the two big things that really are the the assets of having this comprehensive image portfolio is having a diverse images from shot to shot to shot to shot. That's the visual variety. And the reason why you want that visual variety is because that creates creative latitude for the team that is implementing these images across every single touch point of your online presence, not just social and not just your website, but everywhere. And if you take the time to invest in these kinds of images, that sends a signal to the market that you actually care about this, and that you're putting forth an effort to truly give them that real insider look into what the process looks like, and that you care enough to put that out there in a way that's going to grab their attention.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody would disagree that, professional images, professional photography, videography, all of that stuff, it's just night and day difference. I'm amazed by, and like I was saying earlier, like I always like the behind the scenes stuff, how stuff's made. I mean, I think it was yesterday I was like doom scrolling on TikTok and I came across a guy that makes saddles for horses, like leather saddles.
Interesting.
I
Right.
don't have horses. I'm never going to own a horse, but I'll watch 8 videos on how they make saddles because I'm interested in the process, the craftsmanship and the process that goes into that. Or if it's a behind the scenes, video, like I'm always curious how the stuff is behind the scenes. But like what blows my mind is like you've probably seen them, like street photographers, they go up and like, hey, you're, pretty girl, can I take your photo, or a cop or whatever. And they
Yeah.
show them taking it, and then the after, obviously there's some editing and filters and things that are added, but it's like, how did you know? And again, this is I'm setting you up here, I'm teeing you up, John, for the slam dunk. How did you know, like, that angle with that sunlight and that distance and filter would make such a huge impact on the overall quality of the photo? And so this is where you come in and talk about why you should hire a professional.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't even have to answer that because it pretty much answered itself. The truth is, experts hire experts for a reason.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you know which saw to use or what glue to use? By the way, I am completely useless when it comes to building anything. It's embarrassing. Fortunately, I have some form of a talent with a camera in my hand, so I'm okay. But that's what I'm saying. Like, even my brother has built a whole bunch of things in his house where he lives down in Florida. And, you go into his garage and he's got a wall of all of these tools. And I'm like, what the hell do you do with all these things? I have no idea. But that's the thing. It's when it comes to you and what you do, that's your magic trick. When it comes to what I do with the camera, regardless of where I am, what time of day it is, what mood the person is in front of the camera, we're going to get something magical out of it, because there is a time worn process that I have built over years of shooting thousands upon thousands of people, that I understand how to get to the important stuff, how to get to the good stuff really quickly, regardless of the variables that stand in my path. In the same way that you do that with building stuff and creating something out of nothing, or creating something better out of something that's in disrepair. It's just what we do.
The fascinating part is the storytelling. I don't know if I'm a mechanic. I don't know if you know anything about wealth dynamics or anything like that, but I'm a mechanic. I'm very, like blueprints. That's why I'm in construction, like process driven type person, right? I wouldn't consider myself to be a creative. Now I can be creative at times, but the whole storytelling aspect, it's really something I struggle with. It's like telling the story with pictures or even with
Mm-hmm.
video. Like, even if I had a video camera and I'm recording and I'm like telling the story, it's still not the same as a professional who is doing that and then doing all the edits and telling the story. So obviously people listening to this can't all hire you. They can't, so I want to give them a little bit of some some action or some information they can use if they're going to go hire a professional. Like what is, or even if they're going to do it themselves, what's the storytelling part that we have to get right when we're doing these with, project pictures?
The most important part about visual storytelling, or just storytelling in general, is to have a plan, have a strategy, which ties into the schematics and the plans that, where your brain works. If you look at it from a very systematic approach, I would argue that you would have a much easier time with telling stories visually, because before anyone gets in front of my camera, and I don't care what I'm photographing, it could be a person, it could be a place, it could be a thing, there is a comprehensive strategy call that happens before that moment happens. Because if there is no strategy, we're just flinging stuff against the wall and hoping it sticks. Now, granted, for someone like myself who has some years under his belt doing this, I can figure it out. But with that being said, I would not do that with a paying client, because we want to ensure results. We want to ensure a certain level of expectation is met, and in all occasions exceeded. And the only way that you can ensure that those expectations are met and exceeded is by knowing what the hell you're doing going into this, to the situation. So for me, if I were to say come aboard for a 6-month build renovation of a house, I would have a litany of questions, not just for the contractor, but also for the family that owns the house. Why? Because these images have more flexibility than to just be used by the contractor. They can also be leveraged as for various personal reasons for the family themselves. So I would want to know, well, first I would focus with the contractor and understand all of the different stages that go into getting the house from where it is to where it needs to be or plans to be. And then that way, that will help dictate the types of photography, the focus for that specific day, that specific week, whatever it happens to be able to plan out systematically how many times I need to be on site and shoot these things. How many times do I need to photograph the team doing the work? How many times am I going to photograph the space empty in at a particular stage? And then that way, there is a very long itemized list of things that need to be photographed, and not just what needs to be photographed, but approximately when it's going to be photographed, so that there is no hesitation and there is a clear focus. And then on top of all of that, that's when we add in what I mentioned before, the visual variety, to offer creative latitude for the team to be able to leverage these images, as well as for the homeowner to be able to leverage these images while I'm in the room photographing these things. So it's an involved process. It is not, snap your fingers and it's done.
It's not just take a bunch of pictures and pick the best one. That's what you're saying.
Well, no, I mean, at some point you will have to call. I mean, I shoot a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I did a 4-day mastermind event recently, and I shot over 7,000 photos, and I delivered about 1,800 photos. So there is, but that's not something that the client has to deal with.
Right.
They don't have to look at the out of focus shots. They don't have to look at the eyes closed, the mouth doing something completely wild and outlandish.
Yeah.
All that stuff gets thrown out, and then whatever is kept is then sorted into a logical subfolder system so that when they look at these images to be able to implement throughout their online process or their other marketing materials, they're not staring at a folder of 1,700 photos. I don't think I know one person in the world that would ever want to look at a folder that has that many images in it. So it's on the photographer to be able to ease the overwhelm when they look at their images by doing it in that way.
Hey, just a quick time out from the show. If you're a frustrated contractor who's dealing with low profit margins, stuck working on the tools every day, or doing free estimates for people who are never going to hire you in the first place, I invite you to my private contractor community, the Profit Club, where contractors just like you are adding 2 to 3 times more profit each year without producing any more jobs and finally getting completely off the tools to never do another free estimate again. So if you're ready to increase your profits, stop doing free estimates and get off the tools, then all you have to do is click the link in the show notes to learn more about the Profit Club and see how it can easily 2 to 3 times the cash in your pocket, give you a proven sales process that will convert more jobs with ease and get you off the tools once and for all. And the best part is you can do all of this without having to produce more jobs than you currently are. Click the link to learn more. Now let's get back to the show. That makes sense. Otherwise, you're just going to overwhelm them completely.
And guess what's going to happen? They're not going to use the damn pictures. And that's the biggest sin of all.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, overwhelm, that happens a lot. You mentioned visual variety, though, and I wanted to kind of go back to that. Obviously, it kind of makes sense what you're saying, but explain why that's important.
One of the biggest problems, we talked about the internet just being completely noisy, and it's important to create a clear signal by using these high quality images that not only reveal your process, but when we're talking about the people in the images, we want to share aspects of their personality and who they are. And in the case of your audience, the level of craftsmanship, the level of detail, the level of effort that they put into their work. We need to see that stuff. Your audience of potential clients needs to see that. But we don't want to just see 3 or 4 photos of that repeated over and over and over again every single week and month, because then it gets boring and it becomes noise. So the way that you break through that is with visual variety. So, and by visual variety, what I'm basically referring to is when you look at the portfolio of photos and you're flipping one by one by one by one, essentially what you want to see is a portfolio that dances. And by dancing, what I mean is wide shots, medium shots, close-ups. The main information of the image is on the left side of the screen. Now it's on the right side of the screen. Now it's in dead center, but it's wide, medium, close, and it's in color. It's in black and white. The angle is changed. The perspectives are different. That's all the nerdy photographer stuff. But in terms of the impact that nerdy photographer stuff has on the audience, the viewers of that image, is massive, because it's compelling and interesting and it's revealing. And that is what you want to do. You want to keep people hooked into your world long enough so that when they need someone like you to be able to help solve their problem, guess who they're thinking about? You.
You may not realize this is actually gold. Like what you just said there is some real gold that I never even considered before. So as far as I'm concerned, this interview was worth it for that one thing you just said.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah. I mean, well, think about this. So for contractors, we're pretty much talking about websites, right? Your website is where you're going to have most of these professional images, your portfolio plastered. So what you're saying with the variety and the dancing, which is the key thing here, if I go to a website and I'm like, here's a kitchen remodel we did, right? Yep. Or maybe I'm looking at somebody else's. I'm the customer. I'm looking at a contractor, and it's like you click on it to see all of the portfolio of pictures. If every picture is just like kitchen close, kitchen medium, kitchen far, kitchen from a different angle, same kitchen. It's kind of like you're just looking at the same image. So like even on your website, if you have, like a gallery of like 12, 3 wide, 12 rows deep of pictures, then you really should have it broken up with the close up of the crown molding and how it comes together. And then because you're creating stimulation, and what you're talking about is an experience. People are having like an emotional experience as they're looking at these pictures on your website. And that's exactly what you're talking about and what you want to have. That's the goal.
That's 100%. For example, I have a family house along with my brother, right? And it's currently on the market. But prior to that, we had remodeling done on the first floor, which then became the staircase to the basement, which then became some other stuff on the second floor, which then became the roof, which then became the breaker. Well, the electric's different and the roof's different, but point being, we had a massive amount of stuff that was done. And from the very moment that we did the initial teardown of the old school 1970s paneling, which was quite emotional, I must admit, when I was breaking down the last drop ceiling panel out of my old room, I took pictures of everything. And what I did was exactly what you just talked about. Wide shots establishing through the doorway, detail shots of the light switch, the molding on the floor, the radiator before we painted it, the chips all over it, the windowsill, the broken this, the out of date that, all the way through all 3 floors of the house. And I did it for my own purposes because once we sell it, I'm going to create something for myself and my brother. But I also shared it with my contractor. And I told him, do whatever the hell you want with this. And his response was, I've never had anything like this before. This is really, really interesting. And now I'm going to be able to use this in a whole slew of marketing materials. And actually, Brad, that ties me back to something you said before. We're talking about websites. Absolutely, you're talking about websites, but you also mentioned social before. Social is also important. But one of the things that I would challenge you to think more critically about, because I'm not as well versed in your world as I am in the community that I currently serve, but I would challenge you to think, where else in the journey, the client journey from they see you on the internet, they're following you and they're engaging you, to the phone call, that, to a site survey, to a proposal, to this, to that, over and over, up until the point where you say, keys to the new locks on the doors because we changed everything. God bless. Where can you use images within each of those touch points so that it impresses upon you even more the importance of having these professional images, as well as mixing in those smartphone photos? Because I'm pretty sure there's a lot more than just those 2 main places.
Absolutely. I mean, you can use them anywhere. I mean, even if it's billboards, like professional images, right? Your van wraps, vehicle wraps, if you're going to integrate pictures of your projects on there.
Yep.
I mean, it's definitely everywhere. My mind just went to websites because typically that's where you see a bunch of photos together, like grouped together in one.
That's home base. You always have to take care of that website. And by the way, I really like your idea of creating that collage, because what you can do is, if you're creating like a slideshow, for example, with the buttons on the sides where you can go forward and back, wide shot, close up of a detail of something to the left, medium shot, next shot, then go to a close up of something on the right, then go next shot, go to a wide shot, and then rinse and repeat that flow. Because instead of just slapping in images haphazardly with no plan or direction or whatsoever, you're now creating an intentional collage of images that not only show the details as well as the wide vistas in that particular space, but you're putting it together in a way that creates a natural beginning, middle, and end. Not even to just the property as a whole, but to each room specifically. It's organized, and it's really going to be able to help people visualize what this process would look like in their own world, which only helps to be able to help sell you to them as the solution to their problem.
Yeah, my mind's like going all over the place thinking about all the applications of this. I mean, so far, obviously, the main underlining tone here is you got to hire a professional. I mean, unless you're like former photographer in your previous life turned contractor, like you have to hire a professional to really capture this, you know, all of these different elements. I would guess that you would, if the homeowner is okay with it, like even having them in the shots, like it's a kitchen, like if you're shooting a kitchen, you know, having them in there like they're using the space, you know, like the husband's sitting at the bar and the wife's leaning against the counter and drinking coffee or whatever, because now you're painting that story of like, this is how you can use this space. This is the memories you're going to create. What's your thoughts on using the customers if they're okay with that?
You could use the customer. You could also use stand-ins. I mean, I like that idea a lot, especially towards the end when everything is all said and done and buttoned up. That would be great. But you bring up a really interesting point about the yes and photos to the build, the process itself. When thinking about, you know, how you can promote your team, the other idea to think about is who are the key players within your team? What do they look like? Where are their photos? And not just in action, but in terms of promotional materials where they're looking directly into the camera, like a headshot or a wider portrait. It would make sense to include the key team members. It would also be interesting to showcase what your process looks like when you're not on site, when you're looking at those blueprints you mentioned before, having it laid out and thinking about it, you know, showing those kinds of things. When you fill in the gaps of every piece of the entire journey, as I mentioned before, in that way, whether it's on site and off site, now all of a sudden you're giving people that really, really vivid picture, that really detailed story visually for them to truly understand not just what the process looks like, but why you are the expert in this particular space in that particular market.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I was just thinking, like, after you said it, like, why wouldn't you just hire stand-ins or actors? Never even crossed my mind. Like, that would be even better, honestly, than having the homeowners.
Well, yes, it is, because you have the ability to fully control them as opposed to people who own the place and they're
Yeah.
going to want to do their own thing. What I would say about that, though, Brett, if you do invite in actors or stand-ins to do these kinds of images, it would be in your best interest to anonymize those people. Don't necessarily show their face. You show their hand on the coffee mug. You show the back of their head looking out at the window. And the reason is because unless if it is the actual owner, homeowners, yeah, you can show everything there because that is their home. But if it's not, this gives the opportunity for you to leverage these images in a way that allows your audience to get a feel for what it would be like to be in a brand new kitchen that your team just created. And it helps them visualize it. You know what? Maybe even it might just be easier to just do. I'm brainstorming this with you right
Sure.
now. I'm thinking about it. It's like, you know what? I would stick with the anonymizing philosophy regardless. It could be cool if the professional photographer shot some portraits of your clients, intentionally looking into the camera in different parts of the house, because those photos, A, are money in the bank for them, and B, they're absolutely valuable assets for you. So everybody wins. And that's the other thing that I would say about this. In the same way that I photographed my house for my own purposes, and then in the process decided to want to share these with the contractor, you can hire the photographer, get all of that stuff, and then you can give those photos to them,
Yeah.
and they can have them for their own personal use.
Oh yeah, I mean, you could literally turn it into a memento, like it's a album of like, here's day one and here's where we are now and everything in between, and they'll love that. I mean, your clients would eat that up.
100%. And here's the cool part. You would be able to, regardless of the cost of a photographer going along on that journey to be able to do this, you can always build it in and it's never even noticeable.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it's just a marketing budget. I mean, yes, you can build it into the project for sure, but I just see that as a straight marketing budget. And you're not doing this on every project. I mean, you could.
No,
But
no. What you would do, this is akin to when, in my world, a professional keynote speaker, they have a full fee gig. They can afford the rate. I am just basically a rounding error in this case, and they want to bring me in. But then I see from their pre-planning meeting with the organization that hired them to come in and deliver that speech, I see the room and I see that it doesn't really look interesting. I have told people more often than not, this is not the right gig for you to bring me in. We got to wait for the right room.
That makes
and
sense.
in the same, it's the same philosophy for you. We need the right home, the right commercial property, the right whatever.
Yeah.
It has to look right in order to make the investment of your money, in your case, the marketing money, to be able to make sense for it.
Yeah, because it's not going to be cheap. I mean, we're talking several $1,000s here. We're not talking a couple $100s.
No, not especially not for a long-term journey type of thing. Yeah, but that's the thing, though. What's the cost of not having these?
Yeah.
What's the cost of just riding with those smartphone photos? Sure, it's going to speak to certain people, but it ain't going to speak to everybody all of the time.
If you're a one-man handyman, you don't need professional photography, photos. But if you're a luxury, high-end kitchen remodeler, home builder, you have to have professional photos. It's not even optional. So obviously it needs to fit. If you're just a drywall finisher and you don't do it subcontractor, you don't need to have photos of drywall being sanded on your website, right? But if you're doing any kind of for the public, what I call retail, whether you build decks, backyards, even like roofs and stuff like that can be beneficial, but like obviously it needs to fit. But the one takeaway I want people listening to this is that just like people hire you as the contractor to do a professional job for them, you need to hire a professional photographer to really get that quality photo. Because yes, you can take photos of your phone, but it's just not going to be the same as a professional who does it every day, day in, day out. So you really need to find someone to do that for you.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, Brad, which is when you're in a service industry, we are both in service industries. What we're trying to do is build relationships with people. We're not just trying to be transactional. But in order to build that relationship, you have to capture their attention. And if you charge a premium rate, you need to look the part. You need to look like a premium solution.
Yep.
And while those smartphone photos absolutely can get you through for a lot of it, and those TikTok videos and all that stuff, but you always have to remember, since you are in the business of building relationships, you need to understand who your audience is and what they're going to react to most. You laid it out chapter and verse, versus a subcontractor doing something real quick versus I work with high-end folks that have luxury homes, multi-million-dollar projects or multi-million-dollar homes with expensive, additions and renovations. You can't just simply, slap something together and hope that it gets their eyeballs into your world on your website, scheduling a consultation call. I mean, you need to put in the work, and your visual storytelling needs to be commensurate with the level of expectation that your audiences have.
Yeah, that's actually the point I was trying to make, and I never made it there. So thank you for for completing.
Same dream, same team, bro. We're good to go, man.
Yes, that's exactly like if I'm going to go, hire you to do $150,000 kitchen remodel in my home, and I go to your website and it looks like your 12-year-old took pictures, it's going to kill that trust level there of like, are you sure you're a professional? Because this is not quality professional imaging.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to get them past the point of, are they going to deliver on their promise to
Yep.
me? Are they going to be able to forget about over delivering, just straight delivering? And you never, ever, ever, ever want them to even have that thought for a second. So you might as well invest and bite the bullet and really put out some stuff that will leave them with minimal to no doubt that you are going to be able to handle whatever their specific needs are, that you can take care of them.
100%. I talk a lot about this with marketing. It's like marketing in general across the board is not or, like, should I get a new website or should I wrap my truck? It's like, it's always an and. You get a website and you wrap your truck and you collect Google reviews and you have professional photography on your website and you have uniforms. Because like you said, if stuff doesn't line up at every step, if you get 3 out of 7 professional and the other 4 are not professional, it creates this incongruence across the board, which creates doubt, which then creates uneasiness for the customer. So it just makes it harder.
It's a matter of perception, and it's a matter of proving what you say is true based on how you show up in your photos.
I love it. One last question. I think it's important because I know people listening to this, they're not going to be able to hire you. You don't even really do construction specifically right now, at least. But what's something, if I was going to hire a professional photographer, what is something I should be asking them, or what should I know about them?
Well, what I would suggest is find someone that has some experience in doing this, and not just shooting for the real estate side where they set up and shoot these pretty photos and like add in a bunch of lights, and or they have just a couple of examples. Make sure that they don't necessarily have to be a specialist, but they do need to be well experienced and well versed in visual storytelling, that they have the ability to be able to tell this story that creates that image portfolio that dances with that visual variety that we talked about. Like for me, for example, after photographing my house, I have zero hesitation with the idea of being able to do this for someone else, because at the end of the day, when you are experienced in visual storytelling, when you are used to photographing a beginning, middle, and end and capturing all of that variety, all of that stuff translates. So, finding someone that's experienced in that world is paramount. I wouldn't even just necessarily look at their website, but I would ask to see one of their full projects that they deliver to a client, so that you can feel comfortable in knowing that they're going to know what to look for. And the other thing to look for in terms of the right photographer is, do they conduct a strategy call with you? Because if they just show up and make things happen, that is a red flag in my mind, because they're just winging it. Whereas if they sat down with someone like you, and how long is this project approximately? Right. And what are the specifics? Talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old. What are the specific stages of every part of this particular project? Where do you start? Where does it go? How does it end? And then that way, through that call, they will be able to put together that very comprehensive shot sheet. And, in terms of price, one of the things to keep in mind is, while it might be some sticker shock for you, understand the bigger picture. How much money do you think that this is going to help lead you to bring in, based on the fact that every single touch point of your online presence just shot up about 10 points, And you have this ability to be able to visually impress someone because of the fact that you have a wealth of images that showcase how you've done the same type of work for other people before. You did it at a high quality, and you did it recently. So these are the things to keep in mind when shopping for the right photographer for these particular types of projects.
Awesome. That's awesome stuff. That's great advice, guys. Make sure you ask those questions. Yes, I know your neighbor's daughter just graduated from, photography school and she can do it really cheap.
She's got the fancy camera. Don't forget that part. The fancy camera, because it's all about the camera.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, John, I appreciate you being on the show. A wealth of knowledge. The guys that are listening to this, I know they're going to take some of that back and apply it. And to your point, like, this is not an expense. This is an investment. Investments are designed to return money to you. So even if it's $5,000, $10,000 or whatever to do that, it's something that's going to definitely pay off in the end. So, John, thanks so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me. This was fun.
Awesome. Now, one last question I always ask all my guests, and that is, what's a book that you're currently reading, or one that you would recommend?
Oh man, I just photograph books, man. I don't read them.
It's okay.
The book that I always suggest when someone asks me these types of questions, one of my clients, who's also a good friend of mine, his name is Phil Jones, and his book is called Exactly What to Say.
Oh yeah.
And essentially, you
know, I have it on my shelf.
Are you kidding me?
No, it's right here on my shelf.
Awesome. That's awesome.
I have to look. I'm pretty sure it's over there on the shelf, but I've actually talked about his book on the podcast.
Really?
Yeah.
So everybody already knows about how to stop counting conversations and to make conversations count. Good. It's not a book that's just about how to, persuade people to get them to pay you. It's not just a sales driver. It's a book that has multiple applications across every single aspect of life. And if I were to when I am asked what book to recommend, that is always my number one.
Yeah. I mean, unless I'm pretty sure that's the exact same book. I'd have to look. I'm looking at my episodes here, but yeah, I'm almost positive it's it. I might have to get your information, see if you'd be a guest on the podcast. That would be awesome. No pressure.
Yeah.
No. Well, John, I appreciate you jumping on here. Thanks for sharing a wealth of knowledge, guys. I hope you took this podcast and you're going to apply it to your business. Definitely recommend hiring a professional photographer to capture all these moments, and really, most importantly, to tell that story of your business and the customer journey. So, guys, you know where to find me on the social media platforms. You just search for the Hammer and Grind Podcast. There's links in the show notes. And I appreciate you hanging out with us. Until next time, remember, profit is not a dirty word.